Hello students, welcome to Unacademy platform. This platform provides daily live classes, structured courses, live test quizzes, and unlimited access on subscription. Okay, you can download this very app, and same things available in app also. This is about me. My name is Amit Pratap Singh. I train candidates for UPSC Civil Services examination. I take political science, general studies 2, 3, and essay current affairs classes. I also guide the students for personality test. Okay, and this is my Unacademy Telegram channel. Here you can ping me if you have any doubt with regard to the lectures that I'm coming out with. Okay, so if you have any doubt in the topics, you can ask me. This is my Unacademy profile link. These are the top educators on Unacademy. You can watch their lectures. These are different subscription plans. For example, if you go for Plus, you have live classes, test series, unlimited practice, structured schedule. You choose Iconic, you get personal coach, daily means question answer practice, study planner, personalized feedback also. These are different plans, subscription plans, and you can select according to your requirement. Okay. Now, if you go with any plan, any subscription plan, apply this very code to attain to get 10% discount. Okay. So same here, different subscription plans, and then you apply this very code Amit PS, and in your subscription you will get 10% discount. Again, if you subscribe for these very programs, you you get here you are having these very options also. I'm going to take political science and IR. If you go for any kind of subscription, apply this very code Amit PS and get 10% discount. Okay. Now coming to our lecture, we actually started discussing education. Okay, Plato's theory of education, and there I told you that this theory of education has, I called it a teleological venture. Okay, it was teleological. How teleological? How it was teleological? It was teleological because this theory of education has a purpose. Okay, and what is the purpose? The purpose is establishment of ideal state. Okay, now if you see that in that ideal state, Plato is coming out with some principles of justice, which you have studied that, which meant two things. First, proper stationary, and second, non-interference. Okay, now what is the theory of education, and why we are saying that it has a teleological end, or it is a teleological venture, or it has an objective or purpose to achieve? The purpose is to achieve ideal state. Purpose is also to achieve justice in the society. Okay, that is why we are saying that Plato's scheme of education is teleological. Okay, now I also told you that when Athens got defeated by Sparta in Peloponnesian War, this was something which affected Plato, and he started analyzing about all the causes which were responsible for the defeat of Athens. Okay, why Sparta became the winner. So this was something which was uh, realized by Plato, that among many other reasons, education was also one. Okay, so what was difference in case of Spartan education? Spartan education actually consisted of military training. Okay, so Athenian features or Athenian scheme of education focused mainly or more on mental faculties, while Spartan education also focused on physical training. Okay, physical training. Getting it? Now, then I told you that Plato is also combining the Spartan elements of education in his scheme of things. And there you will find that Plato is actually combining or actually including physical education regime also. Okay. Then another very important difference was that the Spartan education also included women. This was something which was missing in case of Athens. Okay, Athens is Greek city-state which was home for Plato. Okay, it was the hometown of Plato. Plato was born in Athens, Greek city-state. Okay, so now you have studied all this. I have discussed all these things in my previous video, and now we are going to study about Plato's elementary education. Okay, so here we are interested in studying about Plato's exact scheme of education that he has proposed in his work The Republic. Okay, now here you say that Plato says that child up to age of 6 is to be taught simple ethical and moral truths. Okay, simple storytelling kind of thing is happening here. Now, along with that, he is also going to be taught good manners. Okay, so all this will be mainly story based. All this will be mainly story based. Okay, now one very important thing that Plato is going to censor education right from the childhood. Censoring means Plato advises to have supervision about all those stories, okay, all those tales that are to be told to the children in order to develop their moral or ethical conduct or inclination or good manners. All that needs to be censored. All that needs to be means there should be a supervision over those kind of tales. Okay, what kind of supervision? Supervision means nurses and parents, they are forbidden to tell the tales which might teach them wrong morals. Okay, like speaking lie. Okay, like stealing. So all these kind of things should be taken care of right from the childhood. Okay, this shows the seriousness of the thinker here. Now, from 7 to 18 years of age, education is both physical and intellectual. Okay, 7 to 18 years of age, these are the formative years in anyone's life. Okay, now that is why Plato is actually including both physical as well as intellectual training. Okay, for the complete all-round development of body and mind. Okay, now focus here that this 7 to 18 years of education, okay, education for the age group of children belonging to 7 to 18 years, this is going to include what? Basic science, music. Science is for mental faculty, music is for again mental faculty, general study of poetry, literature, gymnastics, which is going to focus on physical education to develop sound physics. Okay, this training is followed by 2 years of military training. Okay, so you have 0 to 6, which was based on storytelling. Okay, moral lessons are going to be there. Then there are going to be lessons on etiquettes and manners. Now, from 7 to 18, education is going to include what? Both physical and mental training. Okay, physical and intellectual training. Now, after 18, from 18 to 20, okay, there will be military training. Military training. Getting it? Now, this military training is going to inculcate what? It is going to develop courage, self control, okay, self discipline, and character. Okay, so there is 2 years of exclusive military training. Okay, those who do not study after 18 years, okay, this is the first filter here. After 18, those who do not study, they are not going to get military education. Okay, so those who are not to study further, they are going to join producers class. Okay, class of producers and artisans whose dominant quality in the souls of this very class, this very individuals from belonging to this very class is what? If you can recall, it will be appetite. Okay, it will be appetite, and uh, the related virtue of this very class is temperance and moderation. Okay, I have taught about all these very things in theory of justice. Now, after 18 years, there will be military training for 2 years, and now we have just separated one particular class, that is producers class. So what is left? Now the people there, either they are going to become the rulers or auxiliaries, or also called soldiers, and both together are called what? I have already told you that both together are called guardian class. Okay, if you are able to recall the theory of justice, this was something that I dealt with in good detail. After military training, there is a public examination. So first public examination is going to be at the age of 20. Now whoever is actually appearing for this examination is at least has at least actually acquired a military education. So in that sense, it is a compulsory, almost compulsory. Getting it? It is only the producers class who are not acquiring, who are not being trained in military. Okay, who are not trained in military skills. So that is why I'm saying that the scheme actually included the Spartan features, Spartan elements also. Okay. Now those who pass the test will actually qualify for higher education, others will become soldiers. Now from 20 to 30 years of age, students are taught natural and mathematical sciences. Okay. So a great deal of mental caliber is going to be required here. Okay. Now emphasis is on mathematics, geometry, astronomy, logic, and then also a training in public service. Okay. At the age of 30, there is a selective test again, and those who fail are to become subordinate officers of the state. Getting it? Now, at the age of 30, again, first test was at the age of 20. The second test is at the age of 30. Now, who do not qualify this very test are to become the subordinate officers. And by the age of 30, they have been trained in both military education and then mathematics, geometry, astronomy, logic, and before that, there has been natural science, music, and everything. So a person at the age of 30 is actually highly educated. Okay, you are able to see that the person at the age of 30 is already very educated. Now the remaining candidates are given 5 years of training in mathematics, mainly science and dialectics. So this is another 5 years of training, and that training is focusing on what? Science and dialectics. Okay, so no more military training now. This is going to again develop the mental faculties for the science of. It is not science and dialectic, it is science of dialectic. The very method which is required to attain the permanent knowledge. That knowledge which is objectively real. Okay. Now see this, that at the age of 35 they are required to undergo practical training for 15 years. Okay. So their actually theoretical training or theoretical education is over by the age of 35. Now for 15 years they are going to uh, there will be undergoing for practical training. Okay, so they will do practical training for 15 years in order to uh, apply all that education that they have uh, achieved, or they have been given till the age of 35. And now this 35 plus 50, after this 15 years of practical training, at the age of 50 they are actually ready to become philosopher kings. Okay, so at the age of 50 you find that people are well educated, they have huge experience of practical experience of application of that very education on the field, and now at the age of 30 they are ready to become philosopher king. Okay, now philosopher kings is actually a philosopher. So if he's a philosopher, then he's going to be interested in wisdom and acquiring knowledge, and that will require what? That will require contemplation. Now, if they are there in the rule, if they are there in, if they are completely devoted to the ruling part, or if they are completely devoted to the job of ruling the state of affairs, then how they will manage the time for contemplation? So, for this, Plato suggests that half of their time is going to be in the state affairs, and half of the time will be devoted to contemplation. Okay, you understand contemplation means? Deep thinking. Okay, so because they are philosophers and their first love is philosophy, that is wisdom, so they are going to devote half of their time for deep thinking, for contemplation. Okay, and for half of the time they will be there for regulating state affairs. Okay, governing state affairs. Okay, now understand this very point that the scheme of education is such that it develops the already dominant virtue of a wisdom in this in these individuals in individuals. Okay, what is the meaning here? That, see, producers or producer class left the scheme of education at the age of 18. Now those very people have appetite as the dominant quality in their soul. Okay, if you are able to record it, they have appetite as the dominant quality in their soul. Now this very appetite is going to motivate them to actually produce, which is going to maximize their profit. Okay, which is going to help them to amass wealth. Getting it? Now, if that is so, then don't you think that those very people do not actually need further education in military or advanced education in science or mathematics, okay, or even dialectics? All that is not needed for producers class, because their dominant virtue, dominant quality of their soul is appetite, and the virtue related to that particular quality is moderation or temperance. They don't need military education or higher level of scientific education which involves mathematics and further dialectics. Okay, all that is not needed in case of producer class. And then when it comes to philosophers, for example, rulers, they actually are the people who know uh, who know everything uh, about the art of ruling, and they also know about, they have access to the knowledge, and that very knowledge which I told you about in the theory of knowledge and also in the theory of forms. So in that sense, those rulers are actually required to undergo a very intense kind of mental training. Other than that, they will also be having 15 years of practical training. So here you draw a comparison between producer class and ruler class. You will be able to realize that the scheme has been designed in such a way that it is going to promote the already dominant virtue or virtue uh, in respective class. So, for example, if we take the example of ruler class, or the individuals belonging to ruler class, the already dominant virtue is reason. And this 50 years of training is going to further develop this already dominant virtue, that is reason. Okay, that is what it is being, that is what is being said here, that the scheme of education is such that it develops the already dominant virtue of wisdom, okay, in these individuals. Okay, in these individuals. Okay, which individuals I'm talking about? I'm talking about the philosophers, okay, or philosopher kings, or those very people who belong to the ruler's class. Now, philosophers actually have inclination towards philosophy, and that is why their first love is knowledge. Their first love is not to rule. They actually do not want to become rulers. Okay, their first love is philosophy, that is knowledge. They have no attraction for ruling. Okay, they have no attraction for ruling. They have no interest in ruling. That is why they will be reluctant to rule. Okay, actually, the problem is that at the age of 50, many candidates will actually be able to reach this very stage where they undergo 35 years of theoretical education and then plus 15 years of practical training. And you, at the age of 50, you will be having various candidates. Okay, now various candidates will also will be there, and that is why you will have various contestants for the office of philosopher king. So another kind of problem will emerge, where there will be various people with the same kind of qualification and accomplishments who are eligible for the office of philosopher king. A genuine question arises here that this office should be given to whom? Because many people are actually equally eligible. Okay, and this might give prima facie at the outset. It appears that there can arise a conflict among those very individuals to become or to hold the office of philosopher king. But no conflict is going to be there, or that those eligible candidates are not going to develop any kind of friction with regard to their wish to become the philosopher king, because they actually are not willing to become the kings. Why? Because they are philosophers, and their first priority is to gain knowledge. Okay, to attain knowledge, to attain more and more wisdom. So philosophy being their first preference, philosophy being their first love, they will be reluctant to rule. Okay, and that is why there will not be any friction among the eligible candidates for the office of philosopher king. Okay, this also ensures that no question of conflict arises as to who will become the philosopher king among those who are qualified for the office. Okay, now this must be clear that there will not be any conflict among the eligible candidates for the office of philosopher king, mainly or most importantly because all the eligible candidates are reluctant to rule. They are hesitant to rule. They are hesitant to rule because they want to devote more and more time for contemplation. Okay, for attaining wisdom, more and more wisdom. That is their first priority. So, any candidate will emerge who is actually not willing very much to become philosopher king. So, this is a kind of situation where the most eligible candidates are not actually willing to become philosopher king. They have this very reluctance for this very office. Okay, which otherwise is very coveted. Plato further says that those states are best governed where the rulers are reluctant to govern. Oh, see this very statement. The meaning is that the states where the rulers are reluctant to govern, they are actually the best governed state. What is the meaning here? Meaning is this, that if any state is governed by those who are reluctant to govern, then that means that the people there, the rulers there, are not actually power hungry. They are not ruling to fulfill their own vested interest. Okay? Because they do not have any. Otherwise, they would not be reluctant to govern. So, for example, take the case of any state or any democracy that we see in various countries. All the leaders are actually they seem to be very eager to govern, to become prime minister or chief minister. So Plato says that the best of the rulers, okay, those who actually know the art of ruling, because they are the philosophers, they will be reluctant, they will not be eager to govern. Okay, they will not be eager to become rulers. That is the point here. Now see the next point, that this scheme of Plato was directed to tackle corruption in the state, but has invited criticism from various quarters. Okay, the attempt here is that Plato is trying to ensure that corruption could be minimized or could be eradicated. This is one way of ensuring it, because if the rulers are reluctant to govern, then that means they will not be having any vested interest in ruling the state. If they do not have any vested interest, any personal interest in ruling, then they will be ruling in the interest of the state. Okay, this should be clear. But this scheme of education has attracted many criticisms also. We are going to see that. Now, according to critics, critics point out that Plato's diagnosis is correct. Okay, his analysis of the problem, okay, of the laguna, the loopholes, that is correct. But his prescription is wrong. So whatever he is suggesting in order to rectify the problem, that suggestion, that prescription is wrong. That is what critics are saying. Okay, claim which is being made here is this, that the people who are reluctant to govern cannot provide a good governance because of their indifference to governance. Okay, again typo here. This is governance. Okay, now see here that the point is this, that in order to do anything in the most efficient way, you need to be interested in it. Okay, so if you are not interested in ruling, or you are indifferent to ruling, or indifferent to governance, then it is likely that you will not be taking interest in ruling, and that is why you will not be very efficient in ruling. So that is the claim here. That is actually the point here, that people who are reluctant to govern, people who are not interested in governing, they they cannot provide the good governance because of their indifference, because they do not have any interest in governance. If one does not have interest in any particular task, then one will not be efficient enough, okay, for that particular task. That is the criticism. Now, there are various positives also in this very scheme of things. So we are going to focus on the positives here. Whole educational plan that Plato has actually designed is state controlled. Okay, as was the case in Sparta. Now this very thing is actually going to ensure that the education becomes accessible to all. Okay, then the next positive is this, that it aimed at attaining physical, mental, intellectual, moral development of human personality. So it focuses on the all round development of human personality. Okay, it focuses on the all round development of human personality, because it is going to include physical training, mental training, okay, of promotion and inculcation of intellectual abilities, and also the moral development that actually started from the very childhood. Now, the educational scheme is actually trying to bring the balance between individual needs and social requirements. Okay, this is something which is being attempted by the educational scheme here, because individual needs are different for different classes, and that are being fulfilled. Okay, so those who want to join the producers class, who have appetite as the dominant quality in their soul, are going to be are going to be uh, joining those classes, those class just after the age of 18. Okay, they will not be provided with military education because they don't need any. Now, social requirements are also being fulfilled because society will need what? It will need production, okay, trade, finance, all that is going to be done by trader class. Then it will also require, society will also require security. That is going to be done by soldiers. Then it will require administration, or uh, administration at the local level, that is going to be carried out by subordinate officers. Then it will also require strong rulers, okay, efficient rulers. That is something which is going to be done by philosophers. The societal needs, the social requirements are also being fulfilled along with the individual needs. That is the point here. Okay, now both boys and girls receives the same kind of education. That is very important. Okay, it is actually revolutionary if you think. Okay, if you deeply think this very point, this is actually revolutionary. We are talking about the time period of before Christ. Okay, so Plato in that sense is very revolutionary. Please keep this very thing in mind because this is something that you are going to use. Okay, Plato as the first feminist. Okay, so he was the first feminist in many sense. There, if you are required to answer this very question or to comment on this very statement, you can use this kind of information. Then in Plato's scheme, difference between sexes, talent, skills does not have any place. Why it does not have any place? And how do you know that it does not have any place? It does not have any place as women are actually the part of the scheme. Okay, school education. Okay, the whole scheme of education is actually accessible to women also. Not only that, they are also to be given military education. So even military education, gymnastics, okay, exercises, okay, all that is accessible to women. Getting it? Okay. Now, what else? That they women there in Plato's scheme of things are also eligible for the office of philosopher king. Okay. Now I will again remind you that you should actually be able to appreciate the beauty or the revolutionary thinking of the thinker. Okay, by keeping in mind that Plato belongs to the era before Christ. So here is someone who comes out with this very elaborate scheme of education, makes the whole scheme accessible to women, and not only that, he does not have any problem if women become the office holders and they start wielding power even at the highest level, that is the office of philosopher king. So Plato did not deny the possibility of philosopher queen actually. Okay, why I'm repeating these very things that he it is very revolutionary, very special because his disciple, that is Aristotle himself, is going to be very biased against women while coming out with his own theories. Okay, so this is something that you do not find in Aristotle. He is going to have very, very a kind of opinions which are not favorable to women. Sometimes you start actually, they one starts feeling disgust when actually study Aristotle and his opinions regarding women. So that is why I'm repeating that Plato's emphasis on women's education, okay, his his attempt to make it available and accessible to women is revolutionary, considering the time and space of the thinker. Now, what is the criticism of Plato's scheme of education? Okay, we will focus on that. Now, many say that it is undemocratic. It is undemocratic because it ignores the producer class. Okay, although I will ask you to think on this very criticism on your own also. So, the claim here is that the scheme of education is undemocratic because it is ignoring the producer class. And why, in what sense it is ignoring the producer class? Because after the age of 18, they are not provided any kind of education. So the people who leave education at the age of 18 do not are not provided with 2 years of military education, then 10 years of higher sciences and mathematics education, and then 5 years of still higher dialectics and mathematics. All that is not accessible to producer class. That is why this very claim is being made. Okay, this very claim is being made that producer class is being ignored here. But you can counter this very criticism by saying that producer class in Plato's scheme of things actually did not need any kind of education after 18 because their first preference was was trade, okay, production, because they have appetite for wealth, appetite for amassing property. All that is there, and that is why they do not need any kind of education. But still, the criticism is that they have been ignored. Next is the scheme was limited in the nature as it laid more emphasis on mathematics and literature. So a great deal of mathematics and literature is involved in the scheme, and that is why this very claim is being made. Again, not a very solid criticism because uh, not a very solid criticism because actually mathematics and literature have a role to play in developing the mental faculties of individuals. Okay, now it is also being claimed that it is unduly expensive. The whole scheme is actually so elaborate that it is unduly expensive. This criticism is just for the sake of criticism. Okay, I myself do not agree with these kind of criticisms. Okay, very much. So just because we have to go for critical evaluation of everything that is actually required, I will suggest you to include critical evaluation of thinker or any theory of any thinker whenever the question is about, whenever, even when the question is not asking you to provide criticism. Okay. Now, it is also said that it restricts man's thinking process and autonomy. Now, man's thinking process and autonomy, it is being claimed that it is being restricted because scheme of education is very systematic. That is one. But this scheme of education was one does not have any freedom to choose the syllabi, to choose the curriculum of his choice. Okay. So, for example, here in Unacademy, you have this very full freedom to choose the kind of subscription or to subscribe the plan which is most suitable to you. You can start preparing for whatever examination you are preparing. Okay, but that kind of freedom with regard to curriculum, with regard to syllabus, with regard to the design of the whole scheme is not available for the candidates, and that is why it is being said that man's thinking process and autonomy is being restricted here. Okay, it was too abstract and theoretical and lost sight of the administrative intricacies. Again, this very criticism is made. Now, just in order to evaluate critically, sometimes you need to go with this kind of criticism. But if you analyze Plato's scheme of education, it actually involved a great deal of administrative intricacies because whole 15 years have been devoted for practical training in the administration. Okay, so although this criticism is not a solid one, but still you can go with this because these are all the points which have been given by the scholars. Okay, Sabine, Barker, Dunning, all these people actually have come out with these kind of statements. Okay, Karl Popper is also there. I told you that he's a very important opponent, a critic of Plato. Now we come to the Plato's new scheme, new theory, or that is communism of family and property. Okay, communism of family and property. Now I told you that the deductive methodology in Plato is very much visible in every single theory. And I told you the meaning of deduction here. The deduction actually means that Plato employs or Plato had a preconceived conclusion regarding the ideal state. Okay, ideal state. And that is why he is going to see or he's going to establish that very ideal state by eh, going to the particularities every time. So he went to the principles of justice to attain ideal state. Then he came up with a scheme of education again to establish an ideal state. Now he's coming out with another scheme that is communism of family and property again to establish his ideal state. Okay, so here also you see the deduction. This is something that we are going to cover in our next lecture. If you like the video, then you can go and subscribe, and then there, if you subscribe for any plan, you can apply this code, that is Amit PS, to avail 10% discount. Thank you.